Hi everyone, Christina here. Welcome to another card video at my YouTube channel and blog. Today I'm going to be using this stamp set from W+9 called Bold Banner Greetings, and I'm also going to be using 3 different colors of ink from W+9. This first color that I'm using is called Siren Song. It's one of their new ink colors that's come out recently. And I'm using a Ranger mini round blending tool to pick up some ink onto the foam pad, and then I'm going to be twisting that tool on top to make a nice big round dot. Now this ink is formulated so that as it dries, it will kind of dry back into the paper and even out. So any splotchiness that you see now will actually be very smooth in the long run. The next color I'm using is called Ocean Drive. This is the color that's been out for a little while, and it's a nice mid-tone shade that's going to sort of connect the dark shade of Siren Song with this lighter shade called Sea Breeze. So right now, Sea Breeze and Ocean Drive look very similar, but like I said before, as they dry and they dry back into the paper, they tend to lighten out a little bit, and it's going to give me a better kind of ombre fade from the really light color to the really dark. And in order to really emphasize that kind of shade change, I'm going to use those same round blending tools to bring in some color. And I'm using these blending tools traditionally how they're meant to be used, where you bring color in on to certain areas and it's a really soft blend of color coming in. So I'm using both this kind of dot twist method, and I'm also using the blending in from the edges. So after I had all that done, I took my Finetec Gold palette and I'm going to mix up a nice thick shade of gold. I'm going to be putting this on the edge of an acrylic block and then using the edge to flick on some droplets of gold watercolor. You could definitely not you could definitely skip the acrylic block if you want and just kind of tap the brush and get droplets that way. But I find that running it off the edge of an acrylic block gives me a little bit more control of where the dots will be applied. And it also gives me a better idea of where like all of those splatters are going to go. I feel like I have more control over the water splatter or the color splatter if I do it with this method. So I'll use a baby wipe to clean off that acrylic block. And then now I'm going to prepare the greeting. So I'm taking that really large banner from the Bold Banner Greeting set, and I'm going to stamp this onto some Neenah Solarite cardstock in the Simon Says Stamp black ink. This is just the regular black ink. It doesn't have any special properties or anything like that. I just want a nice black banner. And I stamped that once, and there were a couple spots that weren't entirely solid. So I'm actually going to stamp this again. And I sort of anticipated that that might be a problem. So that's why I'm using a MISTI stamping tool. This is the mini MISTI, and it's just a smaller size compared to the original MISTI tool. And it allows me to stamp that multiple times and get a really solid image. So I used my heat tool just to help dry that. You could definitely let it dry, just air dry, but I was wanting to move on to the next step. So I prepped that area with an anti-static powder tool, and then I'm going to test it with some gold embossing powder. This is Rich Pale Gold embossing powder from WOW, and I just wanted to test that area before I went ahead and started stamping, just in case it wasn't ready to be stamped on. So these two words are separate in the stamp set, and if you've ever stamped two stamps very close together, you know that sometimes there's a little bit of a border around the stamp, and it prevents you from stamping those stamps really close together at the same time. So I actually trimmed a little bit off the border that was on the Ness portion of Kindness, and that allowed me to mount those together on my mini MISTI tool and stamp them together in Versamark ink. I then sprinkled on some of that Rich Pale Gold embossing powder, shook off the excess, and then heat set that with a heat tool until it was smooth and melted. I then took my dot background piece after all of the gold splatter was dry and trimmed that down to 4 inches wide by 5 1/4, and then prepped my card base, and I just scored that card base at 5 1/2 to create a top folding 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 card. The cardstock I used for that is Neenah Solarite, the 110-pound version. I then die cut this Kindness banner using the coordinating banner die, and I adhered that with some foam tape and then cut off the excess that was hanging off the side of the card. As far as the greeting goes, I'm actually going to be stamping the words from the stamp set, and I'm stamping it onto some vellum. And I originally stamped this in Versamark and then I stamped it in a black ink and then embossed some clear embossing powder over the top. But then I decided that I wanted that to be gold. So once again, I embossed the greeting in the same gold embossing powder that I used for the word kindness. Then trimmed down that piece, put some Ranger Multimedia Matte on the back, and then adhered that right above the kindness banner. And after I had that in place, I was able to turn the card over and trim off the excess vellum on the side. That's going to finish the card for today. This is really simple, but I loved that dot background. I think if you did some really colorful dots, you could actually turn them into balloons for a birthday card. I might have to try that in the future. Thanks so much for watching, and I will catch you guys in the next video.